Incredible truth exposed. Millionaire awaits. Surprising revelation about wife and their two twins. The morning air was sharp and crisp, carrying with it the sweet scent of fallen leaves. Yet Thomas Reed felt hollow as he stared at the letter that lay on the porch, the name M, typed in bold letters. This was not an invitation to a party or a friendly note. It was a stark promise of unraveling truths. How could one simple letter threaten the foundation of the comfortable life he painstakingly built? His mind raced. What secrets lay hidden beneath Sarah's facade of elegance and sophistication? At 42, Thomas had achieved what many dreamt of: a thriving architecture practice in their close-knit Appalachian community, a beautiful wife, and two vibrant twin boys, Ethan and Luke. Each day he oversaw grand projects, constantly envisioning how his creations would house families and spark joy. But beneath his professional successes, a growing sense of dread nested. He had devoted himself to building grand designs. Yet could he construct a future on a foundation of lies? As he carried the weight of uncertainty, the letter felt like a lead weight, dragging him down. Thomas tried to shake it off, returning to his busy routine, but the edifice of his existence felt compromised, cracks widening beneath the surface. The very thought of unearthing a past of shame, poverty, or deception lodged itself like a thorn in his heart. He loved Sarah. She was his partner, the mother of his children. How could he reconcile the image in his mind with the potential truth swirling in the recesses of that insidious letter? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As evening descended, shadows flickered across the living room, casting a pained reflection of his inner turmoil. Each creak of the house echoed with his apprehension, memories of laughter and shared dreams mocking him. The boys played in the distance, completely unaware of the storm brewing in their father's mind. How could the love they thrived upon be so fragile? The more he learned about Sarah's family from disquieting sources, the more doubts wound themselves around his heart. She had turned nothing into something. Was it an act? A thin veil over past anguish? Ethan's innocent questions and Luke's perceptive nature only aggravated the swirling anxiety within him. Are we still a family even if Mommy has secrets? Luke asked, and that very simplicity cut deeper than any revelation. The weight of impending confrontation loomed, leaving Thomas with a lingering fear of shattering his children's innocent view of the world, while grappling with his ideals of truth and loyalty. Tonight, everything would come to a head. Thomas held the letter tightly as he stood at the threshold of revealing Sarah's hidden past. The air hung thick with tension when a rustling on the porch caused his heart to leap. A stranger at their doorstep would mean that the veil of their domesticity was about to lift, and with it, the lives they had woven so intimately together. He steeled himself, unsure of what awaited, yet consumed by the desperation splintering through his soul. The figure on the porch loomed, shadowy against the sunset glow. Thomas's heartbeat quickened, a frantic drum in the silence that enveloped him. Every instinct screamed at him to retreat, to shield himself and his family from the truth he feared, yet a compulsion drew him forward. As he stepped outside, their eyes met, revealing nothing but an unsettling calm. The stranger was older, perhaps in his late 50s, with salt and pepper hair and a weary expression that hinted at stories untold. A shiver of recognition sparked. He had seen this man before in vague associations, an old photograph in Sarah's keepsake box. "Mr. Reed?" the man asked, his voice gravelly, slicing through the cool air. "Yes, that's me," Thomas replied, wary, a heavy unease settling deep within his gut. I'm here about your wife. Her past hasn't left her. The stranger continued, his words hanging like a storm cloud, ready to unleash chaos. Why are you telling me this? Thomas questioned, the fight rising within him. Was this merely a ruse? Uncertainty clawed at his defenses. The stranger squared his shoulders, readying himself. I can help you find out what you need to know, but you must be prepared for the truth. Truth. That word hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. Thomas took a breath, edging closer. He wanted to scream for Sarah, for her to come and dismiss this uninvited disturbance, to reaffirm their life together. But deep down, a different voice whispered muted reassurances. It was time to confront what had been lingering just beneath the surface. What do you know? Thomas demanded, and even to himself, he sounded more resolute than he felt. The man stepped forward, lowering his voice as if afraid the entire neighborhood could hear the confession. Your wife comes from a place far removed from the comfortable life you've built together. There are shadows in her past, family connections that might threaten everything you cherish. Every instinct in Thomas twisted, flaring with adrenaline. Part of him wanted to slam the door, to refuse this disruptive honesty. Yet another part surged forward, a burgeoning strength that demanded resolution. He thought of Sarah's laughter with the boys, of the life they had constructed, seemingly intact. It was time to peel back the layers. How do I know you're telling the truth? Because I have proof. The stranger reached into his coat, producing a folded piece of paper. I've been collecting information for years. You'll want to see... Before he could finish, an urgent thought swept through Thomas's mind. The commitment he had made to his family. Could he face this? Each revelation could alter his reality. The risks felt seismic. What if he uncovered something so destructive that the lives he had built could shatter overnight? Determination surged within him. No, I won't look blindly. I need to discuss this with Sarah before I dive headlong into secrets. What you choose to do is your decision, the man replied, his eyes narrowing slightly. But remember, truth doesn't wait for anyone. As the stranger turned to leave, the tension hung like fog, suffocating and inescapable. 1,000 unanswered questions crowded Thomas's mind, each one more pressing than the last. He felt the need to dissect his feelings, to reconcile loyalty with the insistent call of discovery. He had built structures to last, yet now he faced foundations far less certain. Returning inside, he paused, overwhelmed. Yet reframing his reality was not just about Sarah's past. It was about him confronting the deeper fears that lived within. He had focused on constructing magnificent things outside. Now the true architecture he needed to design was within himself. The moment pressed against him. It was imminent. As he prepared to find Sarah, his pulse quickened. He understood with startling clarity. The time had come to face whatever lay hidden in darkness. What was waiting to confront him? Would the family he loved survive the truths unearthed? Or would those truths become the very nail in their coffin? His resolve had never been clearer, but uncertainty still loomed large. Would he have the courage to withstand the tempest that was about to unfold? How would his choices echo through the fragile walls of their existence? Thomas stepped into the living room, the house eerily quiet, save for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of children playing outside. Each sound felt amplified, echoing the turmoil that brewed within him. He could feel the weight of the stranger's words pressing against his chest. What did they mean for Sarah and the boys? He approached the family photo that hung above the fireplace, his hand gently brushing the glass surface. Sarah's smile, bright and untroubled, contrasted starkly with the dark shadow cast by the stranger's arrival. Was this the moment it all began to unravel? Time stretched, and he struggled to reconcile the image of Sarah he knew with the one the man spoke of. The hidden past, the secrets lurking just beyond their comfortable existence. Did Sarah even realize how much of her history shadowed their lives? A rush of protective instinct surged through him, but it was tangled with a deep-seated fear of the unknown. "Dad!" One of the boy's voices drifted through the hall, snapping him back to the present. The urge to shield his family from potential pain wrestled with an almost primal need to uncover the truth. He inhaled deeply, pushing aside thoughts of confrontation, reminding himself of the love they had built. "Just a second," he called back, the voice of his children a tether, grounding him in this moment. He needed a clear mind to approach Sarah. His heart raced as he made his way to the kitchen. The smell of cinnamon and sugar lingered in the air. Sarah was baking again, her attempt to both nurture her family and perhaps quell her own fears. It was comforting, and yet confusing. He found her at the counter, covered in flour, focused on crafting some kind of pastry. For a moment, watching her work, Thomas was overwhelmed again by that all-consuming love that had drawn them together in the first place. In times like this, she was an anchor. "Hey," he said, trying to inject normalcy into the situation. He needed to know if her heart bore secrets. He couldn't let the unknown become an insurmountable barrier. Turning, Sarah smiled, her eyes sparkling like the sun cutting through clouds. But something in her expression shifted as she noted the tension in his gaze. "Hey, everything okay?" Her voice was gentle, a balm meant to soothe. "Can we talk?" he asked, battling with how to approach the conversation. He feared he might shatter the perception of tranquility they had cultivated. "Sure, what's on your mind?" He took a breath, searching for the right words, but his resolve wavered. Doubts nagged at him, about his ability to bring this up, let alone handle what could come next. "It's about our past. Yours." The moment the words escaped him, they seemed to hang in the air. He couldn't take it back. In a swift motion, he pulled the folded paper from his pocket, holding it tightly, resisting the urge to toss it aside. Sarah's brow furrowed with concern as she studied him, weighing whether to hide or reveal. "What do you mean? Is there something I should know?" "Someone visited me. He said your past hasn't left you, that there are shadows, connections." Each word felt like a physics test, a delicate balance on a tightrope stretched over an abyss. Silence engulfed them. The playful laughter of their sons faded into a hollow echo, drowned out by the uncertainties growing around them. Every fiber in his being urged him to protect her, yet here they stood, on the cusp of what could alter everything. "I need to understand, Sarah. Can we talk about this now?" A flurry of emotions danced across her face. Fear, resignation, and an undeniable sense of resolve flared to life. Would she share? Would she fight back? Or would a deeper truth finally surface? The flicker of her expression lingered before she finally sighed, the weight of confession heavy. "Thomas, there are things you may not be ready to hear." With those words, the atmosphere shifted. The moment had arrived. Time for him to understand. Nothing would remain untouched. The truths of their lives were demanding acknowledgement. As they stood on that precipice, Thomas couldn't tell what lay beyond. The dawn of reconciliation, or the dusk of destruction. Would they together weather the storm that threatened to break? Everything hung on Sarah's next words, but for now, the real question loomed larger. How would this revelation shape their future? Thomas felt the room's energy crackle with potential. He noticed the sunlight spilling through the kitchen window, illuminating the flour dusting Sarah's cheeks. Within that fleeting moment, a primal instinct anchored him. Protect this love, whatever the cost. Yet how could he shield it without fully knowing the threat? Sometimes the hardest truths, the ones that scratch beneath the surface, are the ones that can set you free, he thought, recalling the stranger's warning. The fleeting image of their family, untainted by shadows, flickered in his mind, almost palpable, yet so far out of reach. "Sarah, please," he pressed, clutching the paper like it was a lifeline. "I can't bear uncertainty when it comes to you and the boys. Your past, it matters. I need to know. His voice wavered despite his attempts at steadiness, betraying the apprehension he felt. The tension around her seemed to thicken. What if my past is something you can't handle? She countered softly, a defensive edge sharpening her voice. Try me, he replied, steeling himself. I won't crumble under the weight of what you share. You're my wife, and I need to stand beside you, but you have to let me in. She hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing her features. Was it not just fear she carried, but a weight of shame that burdened her heart? Thomas was painfully aware that revealing something so raw could either cement their bond or shatter it. Okay, but if I share this with you, Thomas, it changes everything. Sarah finally relented, the fight leaving her for a moment. Her shoulders slumped, and a shadow of despair danced in her eyes. Let it change everything then, Thomas urged, desperate to cut through the fog of secrets. I'm ready. With a deep inhalation, Sarah began to speak, the words swirling around them like a soft gust of wind. She recounted fragments of her earlier life, a tapestry woven from experiences that danced on the edge of darkness. The mistakes, the choices unmade, the countless times she had transformed herself in pursuit of acceptance. I was involved with people I shouldn't have been, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. People who had influence and power. I thought that was success. I needed that validation, and it led me to make choices that could haunt you if they ever came to light. Every syllable struck him like a hammer, chiseling away the perception he held of her. The woman who stood before him, with flower-caked hands and a tender heart, wasn't merely a mother or a partner. She was also a survivor, forged by trials he never could have imagined. Why didn't you tell me? He managed to ask, constricted by a sense of betrayal, mixed with a burgeoning understanding. I was afraid it would change how you saw me, she confessed, choking back emotion. You love the woman I became, not the girl who ran from her past. I've fought so hard to build this life with you, where we are a family. What if my past taints that? Thomas took a step closer, searching her eyes for something, an anchor. We can face this together, whatever it is. The only thing that can shatter us is the silence of secrets. I believe in you, in us. His voice lowered, carrying weight and resolve. Trust me. In that moment, the air thrummed with unspoken words, a tangible tremor that shook the very foundation of what they deemed their reality. Yet beyond that threshold lay an unsettling truth, one that might not only uncover hidden strengths, but also awaken everything they meticulously cultivated over the years. Sarah, he urged gently, there might be more to this than we understand. Are there connections still breathing in your past? Her eyes widened, an avalanche of realizations seemingly cascading down like jagged rocks from a precipice. You might not want to ask that question, she whispered, fear threading through her tone, because I can't promise the monsters are gone. And as the shadows danced on the walls, Thomas felt an impending storm gathering just beyond the horizon. If buried truths roiled beneath the surface, what calamities awaited in their wake? How deep does this go? He thought, heart racing at the looming implications. As he stood on the brink of revelation, Thomas couldn't shake the fear that perhaps some doors were better left unopened, even as he knew, with every fiber of his being, that the time had come to plunge into the depths of their shared past. What waited beyond he dared not fantasize, but the question hung heavy. Were they ready to confront what lay ahead? As Sarah's confession hung in the air, Thomas felt a weight drop into the pit of his stomach, a mixture of fear and visceral determination. The sunlight streaming through the kitchen window now felt like tepid water, dull and lacking warmth. The future of their family was shadowed by the remnants of a past that Thomas knew could fracture the fragile trust they had meticulously constructed over the years. Can you put a name to those monsters, Sarah? Thomas asked, his voice steady but laced with urgency. The depth of her eyes told him she was grappling with more than just memories. It was a battle against the very identity she had forged as a protective barrier. She inhaled sharply, as if challenging a specter in the room. There are people who won't let go easily. My past ties aren't just loose threads. They have roots, and those roots feed on fear. I left that world, but it hasn't forgotten me. A shiver danced along Thomas's spine, igniting his protective instincts. He envisioned shadowy figures lurking at the edges of their sanctuary, rippling into their lives like poison released into clear water. This revelation made him question everything. How little he truly knew about her struggles, and how easy it could be for their life to disintegrate in an instant. "You didn't think I could handle it, did you?" he accused softly, feeling the sting of betrayal recharge his resolve. "I thought I could shield you," she replied, her voice cracking. "All that I've built, it seemed worth the burden. But now—" She trailed off, biting her lip as the tears welled in her eyes. Her vulnerability ignited something within him, a catalytic spark that urged him toward action. He reached out, placing his hands firmly on her shoulders. "That's where you've got it wrong, Sarah. We can't build on fears or sandcastles. We need to anchor ourselves on honesty. If there are enemies lurking, we need to confront them. Together." For a moment, the air between them was thick with potential, possibility dancing amid the heaviness of unresolved issues. The past was calling them back, but so was a shared commitment to each other, something worth fighting for. "You don't know what you're asking," Sarah whispered, her gaze dropping to the ground, as if the weight of her past had become too much to bear. "But I do know," he countered, his heart pounding in his chest. "I know that whatever comes next, whatever I learn about those connections, and whatever threats surface, we face them united. We're a family. It's about time we act like it." She raised her eyes, surprise mingling with admiration. He sensed a flicker of hope igniting within her. Beneath the hesitation, she was no longer the isolated woman trapped by her past, but rather a partner ready to engage in this battle. "What do we do first?" she asked, her voice steadying with awareness, a warrior awakening from silence. "First, we sift through what you've kept hidden. We put all the pieces on the table," Thomas replied, his resolution solidifying, each word stoking the fire inside him. "We'll map out those connections and devise a plan, confront the ghosts before they can haunt us howling." "Are you sure you want this, Thomas?" Sarah's expression remained heavy, yet the shadows of doubt began to recede, replaced by an ember of determination. His answer came without hesitation. "Absolutely. But it's not just about knowing your past. I need to understand how I can support you. This journey won't be easy, but it's better than walking through a minefield in the dark." The magnitude of their next steps loomed like an unfurling blanket of stars against the night sky. Together, they would traverse this uncharted territory, wielding their trust as both shield and compass. As they stood united, the kitchen filled with renewed energy, an undercurrent of momentum promising something transformative. A revelation of self not only for Sarah, but for Thomas too. He could no longer afford to live in a fragmented reality, nor remain the man who found solace in shadowy corners. "Let's get started," he insisted. But even as he spoke, a nagging question wormed its way into his heart. Could unraveling this truth truly liberate them, or would it entangle them further in a web of peril? The answer lay just beyond their grasp, on the precipice of exploration. And so they braced themselves, staring into the unknown with determination, ready to unlock forgotten doors, their future hanging precariously on the threshold of discovery. The first step was the hardest. Thomas could feel the knot in his stomach twist tighter as he glanced around their small kitchen. The walls, once a cozy refuge, now seemed to close in with unspoken truths. He needed clarity, and it was clear that the path to it was fraught with obstacles. He met Sarah's gaze again, steeling himself as her deep breaths illuminated the tension that seeped between them. "Let's start with the people you mentioned," he suggested, his voice unwavering, revealing a newfound assertiveness that made even him raise an eyebrow. It was important that they document everything, every shadowy connection, every past relationship that could threaten the life they built together. Sarah nodded hesitantly and grabbed a notepad from the cluttered table. Okay. There are a few names that come to mind, but I don't know how much you'll want to hear. The tremor in her voice surprised him. Fear crept back into the room, but it circled less threateningly now. It was merely a spectator, waiting for the first act to unfold. Try me. I need to understand what I'm dealing with. We both do, he replied, his conviction reinforced by the lingering sense that there was more to uncover, about her and about himself. As she began to write, Thomas turned to the window, eyes focused on the world outside. The neighborhood felt serene, a stark contrast to the hurricane brewing within their home. Sunlight streamed down, illuminating the path ahead, and for the first time, the light didn't feel dim or lacking warmth. There's Derek. He was, friend of sorts. He knows things, dangerous kinds of things. Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts, pulling him back. Dangerous how? Thomas pressed, turning back to face her, curiosity peeking over the fear. Let's just say he's not someone who, enjoys being dismissed. If he feels wronged, he retaliates, and he doesn't shy away from using intimidation tactics to get what he wants. The tremor returned with force in her voice, and again, Thomas was left grappling with the reality of the woman before him, layers and intricacies previously hidden. That's not just a simple relationship, he stated, his tone now laced with a calculated edge. What kind of ties do you have to him? They locked eyes, and for the first time, Thomas could see a flicker of alarm. I knew him long before I met you, she confessed, her words rushed and marked with regret. I thought leaving him behind would be enough to sever the connection, but terror blurs the lines sometimes, and a part of me believed that he might be trustworthy, that he could change. The admission sent chills across Thomas's spine, sparking a primal protective instinct. How much had her past entangled her present? And how had she misjudged not only the nature of that friendship, but her own understanding of trust? Did you ever let him know about me? About us? He asked, trying to maintain his composure. The reality of their journey felt as if it had just taken a sharp turn down an unsavory alley. Her eyes fluttered shut for an instant. I didn't want to drag you into that murky world. I wanted you to live free of that burden. I thought it was over. Clearly it isn't, he replied, the frustration knotting in his chest. It's bigger than we realized. We need to confront this directly, without holding back any detail. He can't just fade into the background. We need to know what he knows. Thomas felt a storm of emotions, a mix of anger, concern, and a slight trembling undercurrent of fear that rivaled the fight against his own sense of betrayal. The protective walls he had erected were resonating now, echoing back resilience in the face of adversity. Okay, Sarah acquiesced slowly, still hesitant. But if we're going to deal with Derek, there's a chance it could expose both of us in ways we can't control. Then we prepare for it. If those ties can bind you, they can bind me too. But I can't fight this battle blind. Their resolve sharpened into a single purpose. An emergence into the unknown weighed heavy with the uncertainty of consequences. Thomas's thoughts began to mold into strategies, actions to confront the past head-on, protecting not only Sarah but the sanctity of their family. Yet as the conversation shifted, a thought danced ominously at the edges of his mind. If they confronted Derek, which ghost would actually haunt them the most? As they forged ahead, the conversation crackled with the intensity of shared vulnerabilities. The undercurrents were changing. The stage had been set. But buried questions loomed on the horizon, daring them to reckon with ramifications that transcended mere shadows. Are we really ready for this? Sarah's voice trembled, holding both hope and fear. Thomas fixed her with a steady gaze. Ready or not, the The time to face this is now. The kitchen became a theater of their confrontation, echoing their commitment to redefining not only their pasts, but their future as well. And as they moved forward, one question remained, a haunting whisper that could either break or bind them tighter. As the unveiling drew closer, what truths would truly emerge, and would they be strong enough to handle them? With determination slicing through the tension, Thomas pushed aside his fears and focused on the task at hand. He knew that confronting Derek was no longer an optional endeavor. It was the linchpin holding their fragile world together. The scattered debris of their past felt heavy, yet his resolve surged. Okay, let's make a list. What do we need to know about Derek? He instructed, attempting to anchor their thoughts tangibly. Sarah grabbed the notepad again, her apprehension palpable as she began to scribble furiously. He has a network. No one in that world works alone. He's got a reputation. People listen when he speaks. But he doesn't just use threats. He uses information, scandals. It's how he maintains control, she explained, the weight of her words revealing layers of an unsettling past. As she spoke, Thomas began connecting dots, formulating a broader picture. There were risks involved, but the lack of knowledge was even more perilous. He recognized the breadth of their dilemma now. The more they uncovered about Derek, the more entwined they would become in the chaos he wielded. What if we reach out to someone who knows him? Maybe we can gather information before confronting him directly, Thomas suggested, the idea materializing like a glimmer of hope against the impending darkness. Sarah looked up, surprise flickering in her eyes. You mean like an informant? I don't know. That could put you at risk too. He met her gaze with steady purpose. If Derek's ties bind you, then they involve me now too. I won't stand on the sidelines while you confront your past. I can handle risk, but we need intel. The room pulsed with the gravity of his declaration. It wasn't just about confronting Derek anymore. No, this was about forging an alliance, one between them, a united front against a shared threat. Thomas felt an urgency to act. He decided to channel his emotional turmoil into precision. I need to strategize, he thought, envisioning possible angles to research information without raising suspicion. The weight of responsibility felt heavier on his shoulders, but an unexpected thrill coursed through him. Sarah glanced at him, her uncertainty mixed with admiration. You're really serious about this, aren't you? He nodded, taking a moment to absorb her gaze. There was a glimmer of something more. Trust, courage, perhaps even love blooming in the cracks of their collective fear. We owe it to ourselves to become proactive. You didn't choose this past, but now, together, we can reshape our future. As they plotted their next moves, Thomas couldn't shake the growing sense of agency swelling within him. The inventory of skills he possessed, analysis, negotiation, and resolve, flickered to life like embers waiting to ignite a fire. This was his moment not only to protect Sarah, but also to rediscover and fortify his own identity amidst the chaos. What other names do you remember? Any associates of Derek? People we can connect with for insights? He inquired, feeling the gears of action begin to turn. Sarah hesitated, furrowing her brows in thought. There's Lisa. She worked with him for a while. She might be afraid, but she knows the ins and outs of Derek's dealings. Then there's Mike, Derek's friend from college, but... Mike? Thomas interjected, his brain racing. What do you know about him? Would he be someone who could lend us a hand without tipping Derek off? Possibly. The thing is, his loyalty lies with Derek. Thomas felt the knot in his stomach twist again, but this time it sprang forth with newfound vigor. Questions surged. How could he leverage his instincts to turn potential allies into assets? Then let's approach it delicately. We need to gather facts while keeping our own identities hidden. This is a tightrope we can't afford to fall from. Agreeing to tread carefully, they outlined their segmented approach to connect with both Lisa and Mike, crafting a facade that would obscure their intentions. Thomas realized that he was stepping into a complex dance, but this was no longer about surviving. This was about thriving. The sun dipped lower in the sky, signaling the end of a long day, casting shadows across the kitchen floor. With dusk creeping in, an ominous sense of urgency clouded in his thoughts. This plan would lead them deep into troubled waters, a world they were ill-prepared for. But as he looked at Sarah, he felt strength blossom within him. "Are you ready for this?" Sarah asked tentatively, her voice cracking slightly, betraying the gravity of their mission. "Not just for us, but for our twins too," Thomas replied fiercely, igniting a fierce internal flame. "Very well then, let's face this head-on, together." As they reaffirmed their commitment to confront the shadows, Thomas couldn't shake the persistent buzzing in his mind. If they peeked behind the curtain, would they uncover truths capable of destroying everything they had built? With their plans set, the boundaries of their world began to expand, and the repercussions felt chillingly imminent. Would they emerge as the architects of their destinies, or relinquish their power to the very darkness they sought to confront? The following morning brought an unsettling sense of clarity. Thomas awoke early, the dim light filtering through the blinds a stark reminder of the day ahead. With every tick of the clock echoing through their living space, his anxiety twisted into a focused purpose. This was it. The moment for clarity had arrived, and he needed to seize it. After a quick shower, he sought out Sarah, who was already in the kitchen, her face drawn with the weight of their unspoken fears. He halted, observing the way her fingers played nervously with the crumpled notepad from the night before. "Let's get our story straight," Thomas said, a sharp focus sharpening his tone. "We need to know what to say if we contact Lisa. We can't afford to be nervous." Sarah nodded, determination mingling with her apprehension. "Right. We should keep our approach straightforward. Nothing too elaborate or we risk raising suspicion." "Exactly," he replied, feeling his confidence meld with a collective fearlessness that formed in their unity. "We'll create a simple narrative. You're looking for closure about your past, and I'm just the supportive husband." As they meticulously crafted their approach, Thomas began to recognize the growing chasm between his past self, one consumed by doubt and fear, and the man present now. This man felt resolute, capable of wielding the tools of strategy and focus. Unbeknownst to him, this transformation was building a foundation for the person he longed to be. Once they finalized their facade, they decided to reach out to Lisa first. She was the more vulnerable of the two prospects, with a potential desire for liberation from Derek's grasp. As Thomas dialed her number, he felt the weight of their plan pressed against him. Would she be receptive? Would she see the urgency and the stake they had in this crisis? "Lisa, it's Sarah," his wife began, her voice steady yet tinged with a hidden tension. Through the call, Thomas observed Sarah's expression shift, an intricate ballet of emotion as she gauged Lisa's reaction. Every nod, every subtle shift of her brow displayed the stakes involved. The conversation flowed into logistics, setting a neutral meeting place, finding a time that would avoid arousing Derek's suspicion. Once they hung up, a sense of accomplishment washed over Thomas. "We did it," he murmured, acknowledging the first small victory in their convoluted journey. "Yeah, but what if Lisa doesn't share anything useful?" Sarah countered, biting her lip. "We can't control what she knows, but we can control how we respond," he reassured her. "Think of it as gathering pieces to a larger puzzle. Each bit of information could hold a key to confronting Derek." This challenge began to unravel different facets of Thomas. Every moment of planning brought a realization. It wasn't just about uncovering the past. It was about reclaiming their present, about pushing past the shadows of Derek and grasping control of their lives. Each decision they made nurtured this emerging resolve within him, igniting a fire he hadn't realized was smoldering. The days turned into a blur of conspiracy and planning, leading them to the meeting with Lisa. As they drove to the cafe, Thomas's pulse quickened, not merely from nerves, but anticipation. They were stepping into unknown territory, where truths could unfurl, unpredictable and perilous. Once they arrived, a wave of apprehension crashed against him. Though the cafe hummed with casual chatter, every vibrant tone felt hauntingly muted compared to his internal chaos. Would they discover something that could fracture their family further? Or mayhap something that could bind them tighter? As they waited, Thomas realized he was holding on to not just Sarah's future, but his own redemption. This was about proving to himself that he could rise to meet their collective challenges, that he was capable of navigating the dark water they were choosing to enter. Lisa arrived promptly, her expression a mask of caution. Thomas felt the air thickening with tension as they plunged into conversation. The stakes continually pulsated through him like an electric current. "Thank you for meeting us," Sarah started, her voice steady. As the conversation shifted, Thomas observed Lisa's demeanor, searching for hints of information that could sway the fragile balance of their situation. When truths began to surface, he realized that some of them could amplify their fears or propel them toward unexpected opportunities. As Lisa began unraveling the threads of her experiences with Derek, Thomas felt the dark grip of the past tighten around them. What they uncovered could reshape everything. And just as it seemed they were getting closer to the heart of those truths, Lisa's gaze flickered with apprehension, her next words hanging in the air heavy with implication. "But there's something I haven't told you." In the intense silence that followed Lisa's statement, every muscle in Thomas's body tightened. The atmosphere was heavy with a mix of anticipation and dread. What more could there possibly be? He gestured subtly for Sarah to remain calm, fighting against the tide of nervous energy coursing through him. "Lisa, whatever it is, you can tell us," Sarah said, her voice unwavering. Thomas admired her resolve, but he could feel his own heart racing in sync with the bubbling tension. Lisa hesitated, the flicker of her eyes betraying the gravity of her next words. "You need to understand that exposing this will put all of us at risk. I don't know if I can do it." Her voice was barely above a whisper, yet it held the weight of an impending storm. Thomas leaned in, a calculated move. "We're already at risk, Lisa. We understand more than you think." The urgency in his voice surprised even him, a reflection of his changing self. Each word was a deliberate attempt to draw her out, to shift the delicate balance in the room. After what felt like an eternity, Lisa took a deep breath, her expression struggling to find conviction. "Derek isn't just controlling. He's been keeping secrets, and some of those secrets involve your family, Sarah." Thomas's thoughts raced ahead, piecing together variables that could escalate their predicament. "What kinds of secrets?" he probed, his analytical mind gearing up for the unforeseen. "There's a chance that you might have a sibling, Sarah," Lisa replied, her eyes welling with unshed tears. "Someone connected directly to Derek. I kept thinking he was just acting strangely, but I've seen things. Letters, photos." The revelation struck Thomas like a blow. The very foundation of their lives felt as though it had been yanked from beneath them. Sibling? Who? Why hadn't Sarah known? The implications twisted like a serrated knife through his gut, invoking both dread and determination. Why would Derek hide this? Sarah's voice trembled, shock mutating into anger. Why? Lisa wiped her eyes. To retain power. He thought by severing these connections, you would be under his control completely. It's why he reacts so violently when your past is mentioned. In that moment, something inside Thomas clicked. It was more than just Sarah's search for closure. They were now entangled in a web woven by Derek's past manipulations. The prospect of a hidden family member loomed like a specter, but it also symbolized an opportunity, a chance to dismantle Derek's authority over their lives. "What do we do?" Thomas asked, feeling an unfamiliar rush of protectiveness for his wife. He could feel the flames of determination igniting within him, a stark contrast to the uncertainty that had haunted him until now. "First, We have to find evidence, Lisa replied, her voice stronger now. There must be more that I left uncovered. Messages, financial ties, things Derek doesn't want you to see. Sarah's gaze switched between Thomas and Lisa, her apprehension mingling with newfound courage. We can't let Derek know we're onto him. We need to approach this smartly and stealthily. As they laid out a preliminary plan to gather information, Thomas realized he was no longer the doubtful man on the sidelines. He was actively forging a path forward, one that required calculated risks and a steadfast resolve, traits he hadn't fully embraced until now. But the promise of truth is always shadowed by doubt. In the midst of strategizing their next steps, a sudden shift stirred in the air. The cafe's atmosphere had transformed unnoticed. A shiver crept down Thomas's spine as he caught a glimpse of a figure in the distance, someone watching them. He exchanged glances with Sarah, fear coloring her features as a new layer of urgency erupted. "Who's that?" she whispered, her voice laced with anxiety. "That's what we need to figure out." Thomas breathed, wrestling with an unsettling mix of dread and a strange thrill at the coming confrontation. Here they were in the eye of the storm, every truth unspooling around them, waiting for someone to make the next move. But this time, they would not be the ones caught off guard. With his heart pounding and adrenaline surging, Thomas steeled himself for whatever might come next. What awaited them outside this cafe? Would they unearth more than secrets of the past? Or would they step into a trap laid by Derek? The answers lingered just out of reach. Thomas left the cafe with an impromptu pact of secrecy blossoming between him, Sarah, and Lisa. The weight of revelations pressed against his chest like an iron band, but this time, it carried a pulsating energy, igniting a profound transformation within him. As they drove away, shadows danced outside the car windows, reflecting the remnants of fear and uncertainty. Yet, beneath it all, a newfound purpose anchored Thomas's thoughts. He wasn't merely a passive observer of Sarah's hidden past anymore. He was an active participant, ready to dismantle the web that had ensnared both their lives. "I can't believe I might have a sibling," Sarah murmured, mind racing with possibilities as they maneuvered through the quiet streets of their neighborhood. "How is it even possible?" "We'll figure it out together," Thomas assured her, gripping the steering wheel with determination. "We need to confront Derek head-on. If we can unlock this family connection, we may find leverage over him." The words felt liberating to Thomas. The man who had once been shackled by uncertainty and torn between dedication to his family and the pursuit of truth was now paving the way toward a resolution. With each mile, he recognized the shift. They were no longer victims of circumstance but architects of their destinies. As they reached home, the familiar facade now carried an oddly vulnerable air. Inside, the echo of their twins' laughter filled the space, an untainted melody amidst the chaos swirling outside their lives. Each burst of joy from Ethan and Luke was a reminder of everything worth fighting for, a familial legacy, untarnished by the sinister silhouettes lurking in the distance. "Let's keep this between us for now," Thomas proposed as they settled onto the couch, the twins nestled comfortably in play nearby. "We need to remain strong and united through this until we have a clearer picture." Sarah nodded, understanding blooming in her eyes. "Right, we'll be the shield for our boys. I know that you feel conflicted about your past," he said, the gravity of their journey evident in his tone. "But now so do I. Still, we must stay focused. We're about to dive into treacherous waters, and it's up to us to navigate." Together. The simplicity of the word struck a chord with him, cementing their partnership as he watched Sarah's features soften beneath the weight of the past. The next day unfolded into a flurry of activity. Armed with renewed resolve, Sarah and Thomas gathered old documents, crossed names off their list, and analyzed everything they believed linked to Derek's influence. But their search wasn't solely about unearthing secrets. It morphed into a quest for clarity. Together, they ventured into uncharted territories, conversations with Lisa, making inquiries into Derek's dealings, while also drum-rolling their thoughts about the sibling whose existence hung like an unspent storm cloud over their heads. Each conversation with Lisa revealed truths they hadn't imagined, their lives becoming interwoven with layers of complexity. And then came the moment of discovery. One evening, as they rifled through dusty boxes in the attic, Thomas's fingers landed on a finely bound journal, buried deep among remnants of family life. The inscribed justifications of his and Sarah's carefully curated existence. "Look," he exclaimed, pulling out the meticulously preserved diary. "This could give us insight into where Derek's strings have been pulled from." The old pages consigned long-time truths, forgotten and neglected by passing years. Details about financial transactions, affiliations, and sudden connections to names they still hadn't seen together. They were hidden coordinates, leading straight to Derek's den of shadows. In those moments, Thomas evolved from an architect of buildings to an architect of their future. Each piece of the puzzle slotted into place as he deciphered the patterns embedded within Sarah's past and the often convoluted lines extending toward Derek. Every discovery unlocked a new layer of Thomas's character, a deeper understanding of how to blend empathy with tenacity. He wasn't only living through the nostalgia of memories, he was redefining his path, adopting a commanding perspective able to weather whatever challenges awaited. With renewed focus, they found themselves in Lisa's strength and determination. She was reluctant at first, but eventually became their critical ally, feeding them whispers of the tapestry, holding Derek's fabric in check. "Sarah, you have more power than he'll ever give you credit for," Lisa affirmed during one tense meeting. "You were right to leave that life behind, but your past has a weight that can shift the balance." Thomas could see the flicker of self-belief igniting in Sarah's eyes. "No more hiding," she agreed, adrenaline surging with newfound clarity. The flames of defiance crackled brighter, illuminating their intentions with brazen truth. And then it happened. The moment they received confirmation of the sibling, Sarah's other connection, hidden seconds before Derek pulled strings tighter than a noose. They learned that the stillness of the night was broken by movement, and the courage to confront Derek sharpened to a knife's edge. "What now?" Sarah whispered out into the still air of their living room as they prepared mentally for confrontation. "We expose the truth," Thomas determined. "We take control of this narrative on our terms. Together." The sobering commitment formed an indomitable bond bolstering their steps. No longer would they cower behind walls of silence and secrets. The truth was about to break, and their family would stand at the forefront, ready to reclaim their narrative. As they stepped outside, ready to face the encroaching storm, Thomas felt alive, navigating challenge through shadowed paths, a newfound distinction reflecting who he had become. No longer a hollow constructor of shelters, he was now a warrior for the integrity of his family's legacy. When they finally confronted Derek, it was under the banner of truth and a promise of determination. Thomas felt a thrilling rush, a solid confidence anchoring him like the structures he built, now fueled by unwavering resolve. And as they unraveled layers of Derek's manipulation, Thomas could see the threads of Sarah's past weaving into their present, a validation of their love and partnership unfurling triumphantly against the odds. They emerged from that confrontation transformed, shadows of doubt replaced by a resilience that outfitted their family with strength. No longer at the mercy of Derek's hold, they stepped boldly into their future, side by side, harmonizing decisions, paving paths where the light would shine through. Together, they had conquered the skeletons of the past and built a new narrative, one founded upon trust, unity, and authentic understanding. With every step forward, Thomas felt a sense of pride cradle his heart, knowing they could withstand imperfectly woven truths. The triumph of individual growth felt palpable, fortified in self-acceptance and the undeniable strength of love. Now was the moment to celebrate personal achievement, to embrace vulnerability, and revel in the bond constraining their family. This is not just about one story. It's about creation, resilience, and the power to claim your moments. Embrace the journey. It's worth the risk. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It's absolutely crucial for our community. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending because your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. This is your moment to support and amplify our mission.